What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the hater, up in this mug. You know what I'm saying? I'd hit you with a Zen, but I'm a little bit far. Actually, let's walk to it and hit you with the Zen. That's right. That's the time and the signal for us to begin talking about SmackDown tonight. The video's a little bit late because the hater, quite frankly, forgot that SmackDown is on tonight. And then my friend messaged me. He's like, "Are you watching this shit?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." You know what I mean? Well, actually, I didn't even answer him. I'm going to answer him afterwards. So you know who you are, cuck. Anyways, I did go and watch it. In the hater's basement, cuckold. So as usual, we're gonna go through this segment by segment. All right. First up, the show starts out on a high note. LA Knight comes out and explains how he was screwed. Now, the problem with this is that LA Knight is really good on the microphone, as has been established many, many times, but this was not evidence of that, right? He just basically said what happened last week. He Paul Heyman'd us. You know what I mean? Then Damian Priest unexpectedly comes out and he says, "Look, I got nothing against you, kid. My issue was with, Jacob Fatu. I'm sorry, with Drew McIntyre." It's hard to keep track of these jobbers, And basically, LA Knight says, "Look, you thought I was going to lose because Damian Priest's argument was, well, you're going to lose anyways. You're about to get Claymored and that's that, right?" And LA Knight's like, whoa, wait a second, kid. You know what I mean? Just because you got Claymored at WrestleMania doesn't mean that I was going to do it. Maybe I'd hit him with a BFT, right? And at this point, Solo Sikoa comes out. Even though these guys already have a match later on, for some reason, Solo Sikoa wants to attack them. Just attack them during the match. Why are you attacking them now when they're fully aware? But, he attacks them to no avail because the two of them start whooping his ass. Then Jacob Fatu, you know what I mean, comes out and just lays them both out, right? I am sick and tired of Jacob Fatu. To me, he's just another Uso. I don't see any differentiation between him and Jimmy Uso, to be completely honest, right? It's just like they have another Uso, and they're like, this guy, for plot reasons, is just going to be stronger and more capable than other Samoans. He has the same moves. He does the ass to the face. He's a similar size. He's not much bigger than the Usos or Solo Sikoa. So I'm not really impressed, but I don't want to talk about that because I've talked about that ad nauseum, and I will surely talk about it again, cuckolds. The match, which, started, right? That's right. He did attack him during the match. Either way, it doesn't matter. If the match hadn't started, he would have tagged him anyway, so go fuck yourselves. Basically, the match starts, and it's a pretty good match, right? But as I just said, it ends with DQ. You have to forgive me. This was the first match of a boring-ass, episode of SmackDown, right? This I don't want to say new because they've been doing it forever, but this recently, arisen conceptualization of matches where basically the match just ends due to outside interference is getting old. Now, once in a while, it's perfectly fine, no problem, right? But every week this happens, And you'd expect a good match like this one with two mid-card type guys to continue. But WWE now basically just works towards the pay-per-view, and that's it. You're not supposed to be entertained by SmackDown. So anyways, that happened. For some reason, Jacob Fatu comes out and he does regular ass moves, like I said, but it's impressive because he's fat, as Kofi Kingston explained to us very eloquently on Raw. Then we get an interview with Byron Saxton, who I'm surprised is still in the company, interviewing Fraium, right? Which brings nothing to the table. Fraium brings nothing to the table. You may as well just hire the Lucha Dragons back and they would do the exact same role as Fraium. You know what I mean? Bring back Alberto Del Rio's ring announcer, hire back one of the 15 Sin Caras and put them in a tag team. You know what I mean? They're just do you remember what was that Lucha House Party? Remember the Lucha House Party? It was Grand Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, and another guy who I don't remember at all. It was those guys, and it's just how I think it was Kalisto. Just have those guys. It's the same exact thing. Why'd you fire Kalisto if you're going to just replace him with Axiom? It makes absolutely no sense. Kalisto at least had cooler moves, and I think he was a former U.S. champion, so there you have it. Can you imagine that? Kalisto, who I completely forgot, was a former U.S. champion, and people are supposed to care that, Gunther had the longest Intercontinental title run? Nobody cares at all. I didn't even know that was a thing, because I completely forgot about it, and also, while he was champion, he never showed up, so you can kiss my ass, too. Anyways, Pretty Deadly come out. Yes, boy. I like Pretty Deadly. They're like a full foot taller than Fraium. Like, it's not even funny. Like, at the very least, Pretty Deadly look like wrestlers in the sense that they have a gimmick and they have some size on them. You know what I mean? They rule. I like Pretty Deadly. I hope that they get a push at some point, but that point obviously is not going to be in this match because Fraium wins expectedly, right? Then we have a segment, which was my favorite point of the night, which should tell you how bad this episode was. The Secret Hervis and Chelsea are backstage. Chelsea is wearing all black like she's mourning the loss of her title. People should take note of this segment, right? This segment is indicative of why Chelsea Green is about 100 times better than, let's say, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Tiffany Stratton, and virtually every other diva in this company, right? Chelsea Green understands fundamentally what wrestling is. Wrestling is meant to entertain, it's meant to be memorable, and it's meant to give us moments, right? Could you imagine if Bianca Belair lost her title? Could you imagine her doing this? Or could you imagine like Tiffany Stratton doing this? Maybe Tiffany Stratton, because she does have a little bit of a character, but it's like, you can never imagine Rhea Ripley or Bianca Belair, doing this, right? And people might be thinking, well, hater, that's not her character. I know, that's exactly my point. Bianca Belair and Rhea have no character. Chelsea Green has a clear personality. We all know people like Chelsea Green, right? She's melodramatic, she exaggerates, and this was an example of that. The Secret Hervis thing, I'm not saying it's like top-notch comedy, but at least it's an attempt, right? Patrice O'Neal, one of my life heroes, once said that a bad joke and a good joke come from the same seed, if you will, right? You don't know if it's going to be a good joke until you do it. But if you don't even try, this is me talking now, if you don't even try, then you haven't done anything, right? If you don't even try to put on something entertaining, then you haven't done anything. That's why Bianca Belair is getting booed, because she's not entertaining. It never has been. She's like a Jacob Fatu. She doesn't do anything that we haven't seen, like she's athletic, there's no doubt about it. But we've seen other people like her. We have other people like her, like Tiffany Stratton, who also is going to get booed sooner rather than later. I really enjoyed this segment because it really shows that Chelsea Green went out of her way. She was like, all right, give me like a veil, make me, or whoever, even if it wasn't her. Someone creatively did this. And that person, which we're going to call Chelsea Green because we don't know who the fuck else it could be, deserves praise. Chelsea Green is entertaining. You know what I mean? Again, no one's saying she's Trish Stratus. No one's saying she's The Rock. But she's more entertaining than virtually every other diva or women's wrestler currently in the company. I can't think of one that's more entertaining. Maybe Stephanie Vaquer, because she's just got a unique look and she's over. But other than that, even objectively, I think Chelsea Green's better. But anyways, that happens. Nia comes out and the women's champion, Lola Bunny, comes out, right? For some reason, Tiffany Stratton just looks like Lola Bunny to me from Space Jam, She just looks like a fucking cartoon character. There's, in my opinion at least, there's absolutely nothing attractive about her at all. So all the neckbeards losing their minds about how attractive she is, I don't see it at all. There's like no sexuality out of her, even though she whores it up every single time she comes out. She just looks like a goof. She looks like a Lola Bunny, you know what I mean? Now, I'm sure some of you jacked off to Lola Bunny back in the day because you're all weirdos, but that's how you have it up in this bitch, right? After this, she says nothing. She basically says, you forgot who I am. Like, it's like, I'm Tiffany Stratton. I'm not the same person that was subservient to you. Like, why not? Why aren't you the same person? Nothing has happened. All you've done is turn on her, Then Naomi's music plays. Her music is badass. It's like a significant step up to that bullshit EDM nonsense. Remember when EDM was big, like in 2008 or whatever, for like a year and a half, and everyone was pretending it was good music? Not the hater, motherfuckers. I thought it was shit the whole time. Anyways, it's good to see Naomi have an opportunity because she cuts a personality. She cuts a promo, I should say, and shows some personality. She looks deranged. She looks like she's crazy, but unfortunately, she has no claim to the title, right? Like, she's just a jobber, Like, they can build her up from this, but you can't just throw her in there and be like, oh, I want to be champion. It's like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're a jobber, But this is my favorite version of Naomi ever, right? Then Nick Aldis comes out, and he blatantly plagiarizes the hater when he says, we're going to make a tag team match, playa. Obviously he's copying Teddy Long, but the hater has been saying that for years now. The Undertaker playa. But anyways, it is what it is. After this, we have a nice segment between Miz and Melo backstage. Melo is wearing an Andre the Giant necklace, which is just great. And then we're going to have Miz versus Alistair Black. I wrote here, Black wins with Black Mass. I wrote this before the match started because I knew it was going to happen. Then Alistair Black and Carmelo stare each other down. Carmelo has no chance against Alistair Black, and I will give props where props are due, right? So there's two wrestlers I always use to make this point. One of them is Pac, right? Pac, or whatever the fuck, Adrian Neville, right? He's a short, weird-looking guy, but he can do a lot of cool things, and more importantly, he looks like he can kick someone's ass because this guy is peak physique, right? He's got like muscles everywhere, you know? And for someone like him, he could easily go down the Nathan Frazier route, you know, and just have like a mediocre wrestling physique. But he doesn't. He goes hard. Another one, honestly, is Rey Mysterio, right? Another thing that other luchadors don't have is just the size and physique of Rey Mysterio. They don't have the talent or the silent charisma of Rey Mysterio, or the crispness, or the legacy, or the history, or the good matches, or the promo skills, but they also don't have the physique. So it's like when you see someone like Rey Fenix, who is my second favorite luchador currently, right? Like, it's like he's clearly way below Rey Mysterio, you know? Then you got people like Kalisto and Sin Cara who are like either skinny or skinny fat. And it's like Rey Mysterio's out there like jacked up, oiled up, tattoos, you know? So I will give props also to Alistair Black, because while he was waiting to do a move, he was in the corner like gearing up to do a move. I just like closed my eyes for a second. I pictured him without tattoos and with normal eyes, because he has like one contact that's blue and the other eye is just like a normal eye, right? Or maybe it's black, I don't know, right? So I'm like, if this guy didn't have like the tattoos and the eyes and the long hair, right, and the entrance and all the bells and whistles that come with it, he would literally just be another Nathan Frazier. You know, he would have no personality if you took away his personality, right? So the fact that he tries to have a personality does signal to me that he cares, right? That he cares about like wrestling. He cares about the presentation. You know, I'm not saying he got the tattoos so he could be a wrestler, but it's part of who he is, right? He's a guy with personality. Then he was wrestling The Miz, who obviously everybody knows I like The Miz, right? Now, The Miz is superior to Alistair Black in every metric, right? He's a better wrestler. He's better looking. He's more accomplished. He's better on the mic. He has more charisma. He has more star appeal, and the list goes on and on. However, while all that is true, he doesn't have the tattoos and the look. The Miz is just another guy now, you know? And unfortunately, you have to stand out. And you can say what you want about Alistair Black. I don't particularly like him, but I do prefer him to the likes of Rusev, to the likes of Cedric Alexander, to the likes of Obafemi, to the likes of Trick Williams, to the likes of Tony D'Angelo, to the likes of most of Dark State, except for Saquon Sugars, right? I prefer him because he tries to put forward a personality. It's basically just him and Chelsea Green that have personalities on this show. You can make an argument for people like Randy Orton, but he has transcended that, you know? Randy Orton has done his gimmick work, you know, when he was the Viper, or he was like the psychopath, you know, which was my favorite. Like, bald Randy Orton is like one of the greatest wrestling characters of all time. But it is what it is. That's how that went down, right? Obviously, like I predicted, Black wins with a black mass. I already said that shit. Then we have like a moment where Santos Escobar, who turns out is underrated on the mic because he cuts a very acceptable promo with perfect English. He tells Rey Fenix that basically Fenix sucks, that he let down Rey Mysterio, he let down the Luchadors by losing to El Grande Americano, right? And then basically Santos says, Rey's gone now, like, I'm next. I'm the next big luchador. Now, while Santos is never going to be the next big luchador, neither is Rey Fenix. We're never going to see that shit again, right? It's like every luchador, every masked wrestler, whether they're Mexican or not, their entire gimmick, except for, of course, El Grande Americano, but the entire gimmick is, I'm the next Rey Mysterio. And it's like, no, you're not, kid. Like, you're not going to fool me. Like, Commander from AEW is not like, he's athletic, but he's not going to fool me into thinking that he's the next Rey Mysterio. That's never going to happen again. You need booking, you need crispness, you need legacy, and he has none of those things, right? So this leads to Santos versus Rey Fenix. Whatever, right? Then we have Piper versus Zelina Vega. Zelina wins, of course. She rolls Piper up, but at the very least, she does like a little bridge to like sell the roll up because Piper is like 3 times her size, right? Chelsea Green is crying, you know, the whole shebang, right? Let's just quickly get out of the way the fact that obviously Rey Fenix in his match with Santos wins. Afterwards, let's just get the shit out of the way. Andrade, like, you know, comes out and tells Santos like, you don't have honor or whatever, right? Now, let's think about this for a second, right? Let's use the characters of Santos and Andrade, right? And just flip them for a second, right? Would the storyline change at all if Santos was the one that had honor and Andrade was the leader of Legado del Fantasma? Call it Legado del Sombra. Call it Legado del Andrade, right? Nothing would change. It absolutely makes no difference which one is face or heel because they're the same exact character. Andrade and fucking Santos Escobar are the same thing. You do not need both of them. There is no need to have two of these motherfucks, right? You could just have one and have one jobber instead. But I digress. Next up, we have Jacob, Fatu, and Solo Sikoa talking to Nick. Jacob is put forward, meaning closer to the camera, so he just looks bigger, like his head looks like 3 times bigger. This is obviously done so that Nick Aldis doesn't tower over him, because Nick Aldis is like better than Jacob Fatu in every conceivable metric. He's a better wrestler, he's better looking, he's got a better physique, he's more charismatic, he's better on the mic, he's better in every single capacity. So they have to like, which I actually like. I like that they have to like, try to like use camera tricks to make Jacob Fatu look bigger than he is, because Nick Aldis is like 5-6 inches taller than him and he would whoop his ass. So it is what it is. Basically, like, because Solo runs his mouth, Drew McIntyre gets added to the Fatal 4-Way. Now, the philosophy here is, the philosophy here is that, Jacob Fatu is upset at Solo because he just turned a triple threat into a Fatal 4-Way. Jacob says, I don't give a damn. I'm a dog walk their ass, right? You know what I mean? So, and then like Solo says, I see what you're trying to do, Nick. And Nick says, no, it's not me, Solo, it's you. You're the one ruining Jacob Fatu. But in this case, that's just completely inaccurate, because Solo Sikoa made a very valid point. You had a number 1 contenders match last week, right? One guy won and one guy lost. The guy that won is Drew McIntyre. So the match should be Drew McIntyre versus Solo Sikoa. He wasn't trying to add Drew McIntyre to the equation. He was saying it should be a one-on-one match, which would give Jacob Fatu better odds, obviously, right? Look at the Steiner math if you don't agree, And then Nick Aldis decides to just create a match out of his ass, which also involves Damian Priest, who just interfered, and all of a sudden, because he interfered and ruined the number 1 contenders match, he gets put in the number 1 contenders match, right? And for some reason, this is Solo Sikoa's fault. That doesn't make any sense at all, right? Like, Nick Aldis could have just come out last week and said, Fatal 4-Way, backlash, deal with it, cucks. But he didn't. He decided to go through all these hoops, and now he can just blame Solo Sikoa. That's just really, really, really poor writing. At some point, Randy Orton comes out, and he cuts a pretty decent promo, but the gist of the promo is that he's going to beat Cena. That's basically it. Like, he came out, he earned his paycheck this week, but he didn't have to come out, right? Like, this could have easily been done by just replaying last week's promo. It would have had the same effect. Now, for those of you that are scratching your heads, the hater is not saying that he wants people to play last week's promo. I obviously don't want that. What I am saying, however, is that if you're going to do this, it has the same effect as playing last week's promo, meaning that you should up your game, and that this Randy Orton promo should have been much, much better. Maybe should have involved Cena. Maybe you could have just put like a really, really quick Orton squash match. Maybe like Carmelo Hayes or someone of that caliber talks shit to him backstage. Orton says, come on out and I'll show you like the 3 most dangerous letters, the RKO, and he just RKOs him in 3 seconds, then cuts the promo, right? That would have been at least people would have seen an RKO, People pay good money, they should see an RKO. After this, we have the main event, which is the women's tag team match that was set up earlier tonight. The philosophy of the match, the story of the match, is that Nia Jax doesn't care at all about her partner, right? So, she just like, there's a part where she squashes, right? She does like a body press, like almost like a stinger splash, but like a hoe train. She does a hoe train attack. And Naomi's like, like against the turnbuckle. And then the other broad, I think, must have been Tiffany Stratton is there. She gets squashed into Naomi. She turns around, Nia Jax that is, and continues to wrestle Jade Cargill. Nia Jax goes for the Annihilator. Jade Cargill gets up and does like a Hellfire powerbomb and pins her. Perfectly acceptable finish, but perfectly unacceptable match because nobody could possibly care about this, right? They're trying to put forward, Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton, but I don't know why this is necessary. I actually like this kind of philosophy. Last week, I was saying they should do this more often. They should put the champion in tag matches, right? Which is exactly what happened here. No problem with it at all. It's just that, if this is going to be what leads to Jade Cargill getting a title match, that's a little bit weird, don't you think? However, this is better than just establishing her as the number 1 contender like they did with Drew McIntyre and fucking LA Knight and even Damian Priest, right? So this is not a bad thing, right? The whole promo that leads to a match later in the night formula is strong, and I think it should be used more frequently, but it also has to matter, and we also have to care. I don't care about this match, But again, the hater is not a hater for no reason. I will concede that they thought this through, and maybe they listened to the hater's advice, and they actually pulled through. So I got to give them props. However, this doesn't change the fact that this episode of SmackDown was boring, right? Nothing changes that fact because that's the fact, cuckolds. Take care of yourselves and go fuck your mother.